All right, well, welcome everyone. I hope that everyone's staying safe and healthy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have Dr. Corman talking about Calmer Canine, a revolutionary therapy for separation anxiety. Dr. Corman was actually a developer of this technology, so she has all of the answers. So we're excited to have her speaking to everyone tonight. So go for it, Dr. Corman.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everyone to this session, this webinar. We're going to be doing quite a few things today. And my name is Dr. Judy Corman, as Julie mentioned. I'm going to talk today about our newest invention. It's Calmer Canine. And I'll first review a little background on our company, so who we are, in case some people are new to us in the webinar. And then I'm going to dive right into this new and very exciting product. A little bit about separation anxiety as a condition and share a lot of videos and case studies so you can really grasp and understand the scope of the efficacy of the product and what we use it for. At the end of this webinar, we will have some questions available, so just hold off on those, and if we don't get to everything in the hour, we'll certainly be available by email. So thank you again for joining. Well, who is CC Animal Health? Well, we're a 6-year-old animal health care company. We solely focus on animals and products to serve them. We started our company by bringing over some technology from the human healthcare world. It was a device that was being developed by a human healthcare company, and they got it FDA cleared. And our founder, John Wilkerson, bought the technology rights to use that technology in animals. And that started CC Animal Health. We believe strongly in evidence-based medicine. And what we mean by that is we invest very heavily in clinical studies, clinical trials, university-based studies, where we can understand the efficacy, safety of our products, and then communicate that back to you. So that's at the heart of everything we do. And our mission essentially is to bring innovative products to the animal health with the sole purpose right now of reducing pain and reducing anxiety in the animals and increasing their quality of life. So we like to say we live in the intersection of where science meets love. Our current products, our initial group of products, all focused on the treatment of pain and inflammatory conditions. And so I just want to briefly show you those. The CC Loop is on the upper right. That was our very first product, launched 6 years ago. And in combination with the CC Loop, we soon thereafter created a loop aid, a jacket to hold the loop in place so that you didn't have to hold it in place by hand, make it a little bit more convenient. And then we went to, very recently, about 2 years ago, developing and producing pads. So in the bottom of this carrier is our Loop Lounge pad to make it much easier to treat the whole body of smaller pets like cats and small dogs in the comfort of their carrier. And so that's where you see it here being used. And then we also introduced a mid-size pad called the Loop Clinica that was designed specifically for in-office use. All of our products are fear-free designated, and the whole product line, the Loop product line, treats pain and inflammatory conditions in animals. So what we invent Calmer Canine? What's the backstory behind that? It's actually quite interesting. We essentially were looking and always are looking for new ways to use our PEMF technology to help animals. And I did some research that was being done at Harvard University, and the Harvard University researchers were working with some people that had mood disorders, and they were having some really good success using similar technology to ours to treat these people with severe depression and anxiety. That got me thinking and our company thinking, well, maybe we could develop something with our technology that would apply to treating anxiety in animals. We're the world's leaders in the use of PEMF technology for animals, and that's why we started to do our own research and really dig into this issue. We know anxiety is a big problem in dogs and other animals as well, so we knew that a drug-free device that would be effective for treating anxiety would certainly be a welcome addition to the tool. And we set out on a quest to develop such a device that reduces anxiety. The result is our Calmer Canine. We worked with a team of neurobiologists, engineers, and veterinarians in its design.
Oh, Judy, just so you know, you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you're saying anything over the last few seconds.
I'm sorry, no, I paused there. Our internet connection is a little sketchy sometimes, and so I apologize deeply for any glitches in my communication, but I think we're good now. Please let me know if I need to repeat anything. So why did we focus on canine separation anxiety? As there are so many anxieties that dogs and other animals face, but we focused on, say, our canine separation anxiety because certainly it is a big problem. 1 in 7 dogs has it. And it's also an area for research where there are prior protocols that have been written and developed and studied. As you all know, there are 2 FDA drugs approved for the treatment of canine separation anxiety. So we had some good documents to go on, and we were able to develop a study based on what's been done before that we can know that when we came out of the study, we'd be able to measure the discrete endpoints and be able to tell if a product worked or not. So our initial goal was to develop a pilot program and a protocol that would enable us to see if this new device that we created had any effect on anxiety. And so that's what we did. It's certainly an area where, as you know, there's no long-lasting treatments. Most of the treatments, such as medications or thunder shirts or even the probiotics, all have to be given continuously in order to have their effect. Behavior modification and counter-conditioning seem to be the only modality really that has long-lasting effects or has the promise of it, but that is very difficult for owners to comply with. So we knew there was a big need for something like this, and we also know that the effects of canine separation anxiety in dogs and their families is huge. Often or sometimes leading to the relinquishment of the dog in severe cases to animal shelters and even euthanasia in the most severe. Well, we all see cases of CSA, so I wanted to spend just a little bit of time sort of setting the stage. We know what it looks like, but we vets are really vastly underdiagnosing the issue because only 10 to 20% of all cases of CSA that come to us for other things are being recognized and diagnosed and screened by vets. CSA is actually as common out there in the populations we treat as otitis is, yet most of the cases go unrecognized by the veterinarian. And there's some good reasons for that. So we have about over 11 million dogs in the US with CSA that are visiting the veterinarian. But each veterinarian is only seeing or diagnosing something around 20 cases, where there's at least 150 to 200 additional cases out there for each vet in a practice. And so we're really only seeing the tip of the iceberg, if you put it that way. It's 1 in 9, in 10 cases rather, that we're diagnosing. So there's another 9 for every 1 that we don't see, we're not recognizing. And the main reason is that we rely on the owners to bring up the information to us about their dog's behavior. And so if we're not asking, if we don't routinely do behavior questionnaires in our practice to document what's going on at home, we're not likely to pick up the canine separation anxiety or any of the anxieties that are self-reported by owners. In the more severe cases, owners certainly do talk to us about the project, willing to share their information, and we certainly have a good ability to diagnose the cases in that instance. But without the owners bringing it up, we simply don't have the means unless we're doing questionnaires and documenting that. So let's look a little bit before I even get into more specifics about the product. Let's look at some case examples, because I think that this will really give you a feel for what the technology can do, what Calmer Canine can do to help dogs. This is Elliot. Elliot is a beagle that was owned by one of the people at NCSU. He was adopted. He used to be involved in procedures that the vet school students would do, such as blood draws and whatnot. And they adopted him about a year before this video was taken. He was one of the dogs in the study. And as you can see, before Calmer Canine treatment, he was doing a lot of behavior that are negative. He was barking, howling. When his owner left, he was tearing the bed apart, and he was restless the entire time. One of the things you'll notice here, and I pause the video for a moment, is that Elliot is wearing a Thunder shirt. He has the pheromones plugged into the wall there. He's got a Kong to play with, and he's got a lot of toys around to do to help Elliot. And unfortunately, nothing really worked well. So they wanted to try the Calmer Canines in the study because they were just about to put him on medications. And the study would not allowed him to be on more than one medication. So he was on none at this point when we entered him into the study. And here you'll see in a short little while the effects that Calmer Canine had on Elliot. They were absolutely thrilled with the results. Because Elliot was a much calmer dog after the 6-week protocol. So here, about a month later, we see him, he's playing with his Kong toy. He's able to play instead of focus on the window the entire time the owners are away and howl. And he is also able to rest and lay down, which we see a lot of in dogs with CSA. They're just pacing, panting, barking, and totally not resting. So his whining and howling went down, way down, from 71% of the time he was being videoed to 15%, and his sleeping and playing went way up. And that's what we expect when we have a successful case with Calmer Canine. Another example is Cooper. Cooper is this cute little white 10-year-old mixed breed dog owned by a dog trainer. And he had had separation anxiety since he was really about a year old. Before Calmer Canine, you see him focusing on the exits, the windows, the doors, and he barked and barked. He had 855 barks clocked in the first hour or long, so the owner would leave and the study would be videotaping the dogs for the hour that the owner left. And so in 1 hour, he barked 855 times. And here the owner's leaving after Calmer Canine treatment, after a month of treatment. He said, Cooper is much, much calmer, even when she leaves. He checks out the door a little bit. He's pacing just a little bit, but then he's playing with his toys. He's grooming himself. He's relaxing. He's not focusing on the window or the door any longer. And he even goes off for a little nap. So it is possible to have this transition of behavior with Calmer Canine from a very anxious, separated dog to one that is much calmer. If you see here, this is the statistics from Cooper's case, where he was watching the exits before Calmer Canine 72% of the time, and a month later, less than half of that. Whining went down significantly and barks went down to 0. One more case I'll share with you is this severe case that was in the pilot study. It's Granite. Granite is a pit bull. Pit bulls, unfortunately, do suffer significantly with this CSA. It's about a year before this study. And his owner was, excited about having a dog. She hadn't had one in a while. But unfortunately, Granite was a very difficult dog for her because every time she left him alone, he would go into this destructive behavior, and he needed to be created to be safe. So when he was admitted into the study, he was crated when she would leave, but the owner was very reluctant to leave at all. She was a retired person and she was able to stay home most of the time, but she really wanted to go out and volunteer. And she feared for Granite's safety and for the safety of her house if he was left loose. So she did crate him routinely and entered him into the study. A month, you could see, rather than gnawing at the crate door, he is calm. And 2 weeks after treatment ended, in fact, he remains calm and very comfortable in his crate. So we see that with Granite, the destruction and the chewing in the 60-minute video went from 8% to less than 1%, and the whining significantly was reduced too. Granite had bloody drool in the bottom of his crate every time the owner came home, and that was what she saw as the main sign for his separation anxiety. After Calmer Canine, she found no more bloody drool, and she rated him as significantly improved. We checked in with her about a year later just to understand. She had no further opportunity to treat Granite with Calmer Canine since all the devices at the end of the pilot study were retrieved from the owners. But we wanted to see how he was doing, and in fact, she was able to take a job outside of the house and leave Granite in a larger confined area, no longer in a crate, and he was happy and content. So that was a huge success story. So let me describe a little bit about Calmer Canine and how it's used. It comes as a device with also a vest that has really two pieces, a neck piece, that piece, and the device itself is the active component. That is much like our loops. It is a halo, we call it, that has a simple on-off switch and a little blinking light when it's on. And we center it over the dog's occiput, or the bony protrusion in the head. So the center of the coil is approximately in the center of the head. The vest that you see here is what we call convenience vest. It's not a compression vest. The only purpose of the vest is really to allow for hands-free treatments of the dog. So during the treatment phase, you simply put the device onto the neck piece there and turn it on, and it will turn itself off, which is very convenient after a 15-minute treatment. And so the treatments, the protocol that we recommend, and this is the same protocol no matter what anxiety you're dealing with, but it was developed for the dogs with separation anxiety. The protocol is 2 15-minute treatments a day with the Calmer Canine. You can use the vest, or the owners can just hold it over the dog's head. In the pilot study, the owners did not have a vest. They were holding the device over the dog's head for the 15-minute treatments twice a day. But we did check in with questions after the pilot study, and every owner to a T asked us if we were going to commercialize this product, if we could please construct something that would hold it in place, since the owners would prefer not to sit with their dogs for the 2 15-minute treatments a day. But using it away, some dogs just don't like vests. They don't like any clothing. They find it confining. Some dogs don't like the sound of Velcro, particularly anxious dogs. And since the vest is constructed with Velcro, those dogs that don't like the Velcro would be probably better off being handheld with the device over their head. The treatments are done when the owner's home, so this is not a device that you leave on the dog to have its effect while the owners go away. It's simply 2 treatments a day done when the owner's home. After the treatment, the device turns itself off and the vest can be removed and ready for the next treatment. The device is battery operated with a replaceable battery. So the batteries last about 6 weeks of use for twice daily. And if it's needed for longer, the batteries can be purchased anywhere at a Walmart or CVS or drugstore, that kind of thing, and simply replay. Course be 4 to 6 weeks, and that's one treatment course. And most of the time, that's enough to give satisfactory results, which is quite incredible. So we are seeing the long-lasting effects with this device, which is wonderful and a blessing for the owners. But some dogs do a little bit longer treatment courses. It all depends on the level of anxiety, when it started, how long it's been going on. Everybody's an individual, so we do suggest that the owners continue to treat if they have not seen the results that they would like. And it's absolutely safe to continue to treat longer than 6 weeks. Also, some dogs, once their anxiety is resolved, an event may happen in their life where they have another bout of anxiety. So we do suggest that the owners keep the device for another treatment course if it's required. And this can happen if they have separation anxiety and treatment with Calmer Canine has been successful, but then the owners move or are about to move. And in situations like that, the dog may have another bout of anxiety after the move. So we suggest that the owners treat right before any kind of major change or event. So what is this technology behind Calmer Canine? Well, essentially, it's very similar to our technology for the loop. It is called PEMF, or Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Technology, and that's a lot of words, but basically what it looks like is this picture. These PEMF signals are characterized by 3 important dimensions. One is the height of the wave, that's B here. The other is the number of pulses per second, and then the width of the pulses. So those are 3 characteristics that can be changed waveform to waveform and signal to signal. And when you change those characteristics, you're actually changing the biological effect that the PEMF waveform can have in the body. And so what we did to create this Calmer Canine is we constructed a waveform that is different than the loop. We worked with neurobiologists who understand technology very well and our engineers, and they were able to develop a specific signal that was patented by SCC Animal Health, and that is unique for the treatment of anxiety. And it's a different signal than the loop.
Hey, Judy, just want to cut in quick, just so you know, you are getting a bit of feedback and like in the background noise and breaking up a little. I don't know if there is another place you could move, or we can hear you, like you don't cut out for too long at a time, but it is a little bit fuzzy and sometimes your words get cut out.
Okay, well, let me try to reduce the background noise, and I don't know if I'll be able to move this location, but maybe that will help when the fan goes lower. Can you hear me now well?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, there's definitely a loss of the background noise that we were hearing before isn't there anymore.
Okay, yeah, that was a fan, I apologize. Yes. So what is the mechanism of action for Calmer Canine? Well, essentially what we see in Calmer Canine is that we're able to use physics, which is this electroceutical or PEMF technology, instead of chemistry, instead of a molecule, instead of a pill, to have a biological effect on the body, on the anxious brain. And so what's diagrammed here is the brain before anxiety and a calmer brain. An anxious brain has dying microglial cells, and they're dying because there's inflammation, increased toxic inflammatory mediator, and a reduction of the anti-inflammatory mediators. So this is a whole sort of, I like to think of it as a war going on in that brain, in that anxious brain, and that's why smaller and smaller levels of trigger have more and more effect on anxiety because the brain is really set up in that anxious state. But what we can do with the PEMF signals is reduce that anxiety. The signals increase the production of nitric oxide in the brain, and this increase in nitric oxide has the effect of inhibiting the pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6, and also increasing those anti-inflammatory cytokines that will fight the inflammation. And the ancillary effect is for the nitric oxide to also increase the endorphins, serotonin and dopamine. So increasing these feel-good hormones also has a beneficial effect on this dog. The net effect of all of this is really a reduction in the neuroinflammation, a reduction in the cell death, and a rebalancing of the overactive anxious brain. Now, lots of research has been done in the past 2 decades on how anxiety is related to brain inflammation. And in fact, there are pharma companies that are targeting this method of mechanism of action and the connection between anxiety and brain inflammation as they are looking to make medications that might reduce anxiety by reducing the inflammation. Of course, the problem that medications have is crossing the blood-brain barrier and having a positive effect on the brain. So we see that there are whole chapters now being written in the medical books and medical studies about this connection between inflammation and anxiety. And these are just a little spattering really of the studies that are out there, but we know that PEMF signals can produce changes in the human brainwave with relaxation and anxiolytic responses as the effects. And we know that inhibiting pro-inflammatory cytokines may improve mood disorders, for example. But what does this really mean? Can Calmer Canine do this? Well, we set out on an experiment, and a third party at Stanford Research Institute conducted this experiment. It was basically a benchtop research looking at microglial cells or brain cells in culture. And we asked them to expose these cells to an inflammatory event, which they did, and then measure the release of cytokines from the cells. And what we found, or they found, is that with the cell culture that was exposed to the Calmer Canine signal, that cell culture, once it had exposure to an inflammatory event, had a much lower in the IL-6, which is this shown here. So it reduced at statistically significant levels one of the key inflammatory mediators, and that's IL-6. It also had a significant reduction, albeit less, of TNF-alpha, another important inflammatory mediator. So what all this means is that Stanford Research Institute was able to demonstrate in this benchtop experiment that the Calmer Canine signal can reduce those inflammatory mediators in brain cells. Of course, being the geeks that we are, we wanted to study it further, and we wanted to understand whether Calmer Canine could have effects in actual dogs with separation anxiety. So this is the pilot study that I was referring to earlier, and it was an open label study conducted February to September 2018. It included dogs only with moderate or severe separation anxiety, and that was judged by the pet owner's description, but it was confirmed with a screening video, which is important in these studies. It excluded dogs with any kind of noise or thunder phobia or concomitant anxieties, or dogs on more than one medication. And what were our results? Well, this is where we got really excited, because after the pilot study, we saw that Calmer Canine is indeed effective All of the dogs achieved their success criteria after a month of treatment with a high confidence interval. And even if you accounted, because it was an open label study, for a 50% placebo effect, the data was statistically significant. So we were very happily surprised with that result. We also saw that more than half the dogs met the endpoint only after a week of therapy. I mean, Americans being as impatient as we are, we want everything to happen fast. So we actually saw over half of the dogs getting the benefits within only a week of treatment. All right. The other thing we found is that the owners saw positive results and even some resolution of signs after the 6 weeks of treatment of therapy. And we see that the results can be long lasting because what we did after 6 weeks of treating these dogs is we gave them we stopped the treatments after the 6 weeks, gave them a 2-week break with no treatments, and then measured by questionnaire and videotape the dog's anxiety signs. And we found that a good % of the dogs, even after discontinuing treatment, were still retaining the benefits that they had when they were treated. So we used owner questionnaires in the pilot study, as well as videotape analysis that was recorded by the owners and sent off for examination and analysis by a third party. And what we found on the videotape was that indeed these dogs were getting better. They met the videotape success criteria also, 100% of them, by 1 month of treatment. And this is a more objective measure of success. Also, the dogs improved across a range of many different behaviors. The dogs with separation anxiety, as you know, don't exhibit just one behavior. They might exhibit anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 signs. And these were all being measured. And some of them were drastically reduced by, especially barking, by Calmer Canine. The improvement in signs increased beyond 1 month of use. So this is where we come with the recommendation that the product should be used for 4 to 6 weeks, because in some of the dogs we saw while they got better at 4 weeks, they got even more improvement in the last 2 weeks of the study. So that's why that recommendation has come to be. Behaviors too, which is expected. It's reducing negative behaviors. It's going to increase the ability of the dogs to play, to groom, to rest while their owners are away. And resolution may be achievable. I mean, some of these dogs had their negative signs disappear with Calmer Canine treatment. So in summary, we see that Calmer Canine could be a modern approach, bringing back balance and calm to the dog's anxious brain and to the dog and their family, improving that quality of life. It's drug-free, safe, and definitely effective for CSA. They don't feel anything coming from the halo. There's no sound, there's no sensation. So that makes it for a very comfortable and convenient treatment. It can also be used alone. It doesn't have to be used with medications, but it can be used first line as the first thing that's tried in a separation anxiety case because it is drug-free and certainly safe. But it also can be used in combination with behavior modification programs or medications or other therapies. And it definitely was restoring the emotional balance in the dog. So I wanted to go into a few specific case studies and to show some of the range of things that we have found out since launching the product. We've launched it to the veterinary community in September of 2019 and to the pet owner community in October, the end of October 2019. And since launch, we have had a lot of great reports from owners and veterinarians and vet techs who have used it on their dogs. And here are some of the, in addition to canine separation anxiety, here are some of the other anxiety types that are being treated with Calmer Canine. One dog in particular was very well documented and followed by the veterinarian and the technician who was its owner, and that dog had some issues with a new baby in the family, as well as separation anxiety. We have environmental reactivity, boarding anxiety, and even vet visit anxiety being helped. So I'll go through a little bit more detail on some of these cases. This is Riggs. Riggs is owned by a vet tech. The vet tech would bring him into the vet hospital frequently while she worked, mainly because he does have separation anxiety and he was not comfortable at home. But in the vet hospital, he would still pant and pace, especially when his parent was not near. And they also noticed some anxiety around their 9-month-old baby when he was at home, and certainly separation anxiety signs. And then you'll see that quote on the bottom from Dr. Moreland, but she was extremely happy with the results in Riggs. His separation anxiety signs came way down, and he was able to interact calmly with the baby, and so they can start some positive reinforcement for the interactions, and everyone felt a lot more comfortable after Calmer Canine treatment. Bella is another case where we learned some things about how Calmer Canine can help dogs. Dr. Sally Foote owns Bella. She's a behavior veterinarian, specializes in behavior cases, and she wanted to try Calmer Canine on her own dog. Bella's about 10 years old here, and Bella had two main problems. One was environmental reactivity. She would race across the house, barking wildly when anyone was outside their house walking a dog or squirrels. A lot of different triggers set her off. And so Dr. Foote had to put up basically paper over the window so Bella could not get that visual stimulation. And she decided to try Calmer Canine and take down the paper and not do any other modifications to behavior or training programs, just to see what the effects of Calmer Canine might be. And you see there, she went from a score of a 3, which was the most severe in our rating system, to a 0 with Calmer Canine. And her boarding anxiety actually got better as well. She was able to play much more comfortably with the boarding facility staff. Here's Pixel. Pixel is a hound mix. He had a lot of different types of anxieties. I would almost call it generalized anxiety because of just the numbers. Thunder and rain, wind, loud noises, just about everything, including hardwood floors, made Pixel want to shake and pant, and was very anxious with these triggers. And his owner tried Calmer Canine and was very happy with the results. Also noticed that the hardwood floor, the fear of walking across the floors, was almost completely vanished, or actually did completely vanish. So the dog had no problem navigating the house, and that definitely improves the quality of life of everyone. If you've ever lived with such a dog, I have one of those dogs that improved with Calmer Canine as well, but they can be quite tricky to make comfortable in a house with hardwood floors. So Pixel's loud noise, phobias, and anxieties did diminish significantly with treatment with Calmer Canine. Sufi is a case where thunderphobia was her main concern, and she lives in South Florida, where there are a lot of thunderstorms rolling in over the late spring and summer months, and she would just shake and pant and pace, and the owner could not distract her with any toys or food or games while this situation was going on. But with Calmer Canine treatment, her anxiety went from level 10 in the owner's mind to a level 2, so substantially reduced during the thunderstorms. Taz is another good success case. Taz had vet visit anxiety. It was a 10-year-old miniature pinscher. The Calmer Canine was originally suggested to the owner by the Taz's behavior consultant, and this is down in Florida. And Taz injured her back and needed to go visit the vet, but in previous vet visits, high that they had to administer medication or acepromazine before the vet visit and also muzzle the dog. So it was a joy to both the owner and the veterinarian when Taz came in with a stressed back, but on no meds and with no muzzle, and they were able to draw blood and handle the dog in a very calm manner. So that was another huge success case. So how are folks using it now that it's out there in practice? Vets are using Calmer Canine as a tool in their toolkit. First line in new cases instead of medications, as owners really resist the go-to medications typically as first line drugs, and also to lower the dose of medication. So we can see that Calmer Canine has had success in reducing the level of fluoxetine and even lowering or eliminating trazodone in the routine or protocol for these dogs with anxieties. It can be a first choice in combination with behavior modification. A lot of times behavior modification is started with medication in order to calm the anxious brain enough so that the training part or the behavior modification part can take effect. And rather than go to medications for this, we're seeing increasing use of Calmer Canine as the go-to for starting behavior modification cases. Certainly works for multimodal therapy with more severe cases on many medications. It's not adding another medication to that regimen, especially in older dogs. We're concerned about the effects that all those medications might be having together. And this is something that is safe to use with other meds. And here's Winston, a beta test dog for Calmer Canine, playing with his owner. So you can see how comfortable the vest and the device is. It's an early prototype device. But what we've also had a lot of interest in is horses, so prey animals, performance animals, and cats. OCD-like behaviors, they do seem to improve on anecdotal evidence with some Calmer Canine treatments, and performance anxiety in sport dogs.